setting. It's hard in this setting to obey FDR's dictum that a speech should be all about being short, being sincere, and being seated. So I will definitely hit the mark with the second one because this is very personal to me. So good morning, graduates, faculty, honored guests, families, and friends. Let me first congratulate all of you, the graduates. To believe in a child is to believe in the future, Henry James once said. You're here because you believe in the future. In this time when educators are often castigated for our sheer failing in educating many children to their potential, we need to continually point out that you are in the arena, you believe, you are dedicating your lives to improving the lives of children. 25 years ago, I changed course in my career and became an educator. It has been the single most important and right decision in my life. In the schools where I have taught and led, the act of educating children is often a struggle against many things that belie our belief in children. You believe and you serve. I salute you as a brother in arms. I want to now tell you how honored and humbled I am by this medal, because I came to be an educator after having practiced law. I was always a learner first. There are so many people who taught me and inspired me who are far more deserving than I am of receiving this recognition. I think of my first principal, or some of the teachers who taught with me in my first school, who helped calibrate my moral compass, or superintendents who later helped channel my contrarian impulses with the example of their efforts, their patience to do good things in their communities. They are responsible for what I have done right. This honor also reminds me that I am getting old. I am now 32 years removed from receiving my bachelor degree at this very same campus. On a day in May, I remember like yesterday. I hope you remember it in the same way for yourselves 30 years from now. Paraphrasing St. Augustine, why did my youth leave me? And if it did, since it's still with me, where did it go? That boy who arrived at Columbia roughly 35 years ago lives in every action I take today. My parents were there then and are here again today. I have to say again how proud I am to be before you today. That boy was shaped by having grown up in a small town in Cuba during the 60s, a time of social upheaval and revolution, and by the experience of having to physically leave my childhood behind. It was shaped by a tightly knit family and community where my parents were my first teachers. I've told a story before of receiving, at the age of 6, before I had ever gone to school, a birthday gift of 4 books, brand new, a wonder in a place where books were hard to find outside of a small public library. Each book containing possibilities and each communicating an enormous belief about what my future contained. One was a white hardcover abridged version of The Three Musketeers. Another was a historical novel about a sailor in Magellan's quest to circumnavigate the world. The other 2 were moral fictions about adolescents in parochial schools in England and France. How I remember them today conveys the importance they had in my life. Learning mattered. This Christmas, through the wonder of the web, I hunted down one of them in a used bookshop in Toledo, Spain, and reread it. It was worth the effort. The book was as great as I remember. It had shaped me. America, was then my teacher. Far too often, the discussion of immigrant students starts with a notion of a deficit. How wrong that is. How much does it miss the experience of the child assimilating by osmosis, regardless of what schools do, and by intention when it's done right, not simply a second language in school matters, but an entire system of science, a new culture where every behavior is a lesson. I was lucky. I felt then and still feel now that in my first American schools across the Hudson in Union City, New Jersey, I fell into a stream of great expectations that carried me here. Everything I have done as an educator, once I became a teacher, has been about ensuring that every student under my watch can swim in that same stream. At the time, I thought I became a teacher almost by accident. It's clear to me now that it was meant to be. I had gone to Harvard Law School, had practiced law here in New York City, but something gnawed in me, perhaps the words from Pablo Neruda, spelled in a pennant my father had once given me. Algún día, en cualquier parte, en cualquier lugar, indefectiblemente te encontrarás a ti mismo, y esa, solo esa, puede ser la más feliz o la más amarga de tus horas. Someday, anywhere, any place, you will inevitably find yourself, and that and only that will be the happiest or bitterest of your hours. I met my hour, I am happy to say now, as soon as I began to teach at a school for emotionally disturbed adolescents in Newark, New Jersey. Those kids, those parents, those teachers repositioned my world. All people, the great Cuban poet Jose Marti once wrote, when they arrive on earth, have a right to be educated, and then in return, they have the obligation to educate others. The obligation for me was not a burden, it was another gift. My first day as a teacher at the Samuel L. Berliner School in Newark, as you referred, I read a sign at the back of the main office that said, "The kids come as is, they are not made to order." We taught kids whom schools had failed, whose families struggled to raise them, but they had enormous strengths. They often showed huge moral sense, and they needed that moral sense in ways that I had never needed at the same age. And we could not reach them without thinking of reaching their families as well. Respect for the kids meant respect for the people they loved. A quarter century later, I am still using the lessons of those first days. The kids come as is. We cannot change our schools without engaging the kids and their families as partners. The work is about making everyone responsible for what happens with kids. Just as a class has to be about every student, the school system is only as good as its weakest school. Today, I lead a school system where the overwhelming majority of my students live in poverty, just like those first kids I taught. We face enormous challenges but have made great progress. We have cut our dropout rate by more than half in 3 years, almost 60% among African American male youth. I do a job that some people think undoable. I was the 7th superintendent in 10 years when I took the job, and now, after 4 years, and I always have to laugh or smile when I say this, I have the longest superintendent tenure in Baltimore in almost 2 decades. But the job is exhilarating because we are the fulcrum of everything good that can happen in the city. We touch every day not only more than 80,000 kids, but through them, their families, their communities, and every social institution that responds to them. Nothing else can equal that span. The opportunities far exceed the challenges, despite the way that some people still talk about urban schools. We have done this in an unusual way by adopting the strategies of the so-called new education reform movements. We rethink school models, we close low-performing schools, we expand choice, for example. but also by putting a lot of focus on working with communities and partners around the needs of individual students and about rethinking the relationship of the community setting to the school. We have tried extraordinarily hard to work with teachers around redefining what needs to happen in our classrooms and schools. We have given hope to the city about what is possible. For the first time in decades, enrollment has increased for 3 consecutive years. Our results are encouraging, but everything feels fragile. We try hard to communicate confidence in our success, but we know that every setback means we go back to the bottom of the hill again. When I reflect on the work we have done in Baltimore, I can only conclude that the biggest obstacle over time has been a lack of political will and accountability for kids that can only be explained by a lack of belief in the families, poor, black and white, whom we serve. How is the dropout rate in our large cities tolerated if we value kids? Communities have the graduation and dropout and college attainment rates that they want. Unfortunately, educators too often engage in internecine fights that erode the political will needed to ensure what is necessary and possible in schools. We have managed to avoid these fights in Baltimore, and that has allowed us to focus on fundamental questions of responsibility and on fundamental questions of content. What is good teaching? How do we know it, encourage it, develop it, and spread it? What is good learning? Same questions, please. Finally, we're there. How do we make everyone, inside and outside the school, respond to the need of every child? Why, I say all the time, what is the actionable item? If it's not about the people around the table, around what the people around the table can do in relationship to those questions, we are off target. So I am coming to the end of this acceptance, having shied away, I hope, from grand abstract pronouncements and having grounded some of my observations in memory and experience. Each of you will bring your own world and your own ineluctable self to a classroom and a group of kids and families and other teachers, or to a problem of practice in education in a role that will impact what other people in this room are doing in other classrooms with their own kids. And what I want very badly to communicate is that you're going to need to be true to your essential self on behalf of yourself and your students, and yet remain open to what others will teach you, especially the kids and families you serve, and be willing to put and leave skin in the game to make certain that things happen that are often very hard to accomplish given the conditions of our schools and communities, and do that without becoming cynical or learning to blame others for the inevitable defeats along the way. And while you deserve huge praise in choosing to do this work that we do, you will gain ever greater rewards, because what you do will be moral and great in ways that no other profession can be. To educate, and like a good now old Cuban boy, I need to finish by quoting Martí again, is to give people the keys of the world, which are independence and love, granting them the ability to walk along at the happy pace which is that of natural and free individuals. To educate is to free. Congratulations all. Thank you once again. This is an amazing honor. Come to Baltimore. We need you there. Thank you.